Bella. I walked back into the pack house, my mind still reeling from the conversation I'd just had with Ralph. We'd been discussing everything that had been happening lately. The attacks, the strange occurrences, my son Ollie's kidnapping. Ralph had tried to reassure me that we'd get through it, that we'd emerge victorious in the end. But I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had been growing inside me. Just as I was starting to process my emotions, my phone rang, shrill in the silence. I glanced at the screen and my heart skipped a beat. It was a video call from Kai. "I'm sorry, Ralph," I said, already moving away. "I need to take this." Ralph nodded, his expression understanding. "Go ahead, Bella. We'll talk later." I nodded and answered the call, my heart racing with anticipation. Kai's face appeared on the screen, his eyes locked on mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. Was something wrong? I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was wrong. "Kai, what's going on?" I asked, my voice laced with concern. Kai's expression was grim, and he hesitated for a moment before switching the camera to the back view. My heart sank as I saw my father's face on the screen. The color had drained from his face, and he looked frail and weak. "Dad!" I exclaimed, my voice shaking with panic. "What happened?" Kai's voice came from off-screen. "He was attacked by a wolf, Bella. I think it was poisoned." My vision blurred with tears as I stared at my father's face. He looked so weak, so vulnerable. I felt a wave of desperation wash over me. "Dad, no!" I sobbed. "Please don't leave me!" My father's eyes fluttered open, and he looked up at the camera. His voice was weak, but full of emotion. "Bella, my baby girl," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you more often. I'm sorry I didn't get to spend more time with you." I was crying uncontrollably now, my heart shattering into a million pieces. "I love you, Bella," my father continued, his voice cracking with emotion. "I love you more than anything in this world. I wish I had more time to spend with you, but it was stolen from us." His words were like a knife to my heart, twisting and turning until I thought I couldn't bear it anymore. "I'm so proud of you, Bella," he whispered, his eyes closing. "You're strong, brave, and beautiful. Never forget that." I was sobbing now, my body shaking with grief. I felt like I was losing my father all over again, and it was too much to bear. "I don't hold anything against you, Dad," I whispered, my voice shaking with emotion. "I love you too. You're the best father anyone could ask for." My father's eyes flickered open, and he smiled weakly at me. I could see the love in his eyes, and it broke my heart. "I'm so proud of you, Bella," he whispered again, his voice barely audible. And then he took a deep breath, and his chest stopped moving. His eyes froze, staring up, his eyes blank, and I knew he was gone. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All I could do was scream and cry. I collapsed to the floor, my phone slipping from my fingers. I heard Kai's worried voice in the background, telling me to calm down, but I couldn't. I was beyond consolation. Ralph's voice cut through my grief, asking me what was wrong, but I couldn't answer. I just lay there, sobbing uncontrollably. Luna Olive rushed into the room, concern etched on their faces. Ralph picked up my phone, and I heard him ask Kai what was going on. Kai's voice was somber, and his words cut through my grief like a knife. "Alpha Luther is dead, Ralph. Your father is gone." The room around me dissolved into chaos, but I didn't care. I was numb, lost in a sea of grief. My father was dead. Life was cruel, I thought, my mind reeling with grief. I'd barely had time to reconnect with my father, to get to know him as an adult. He'd missed out on so much of my life, and now, just when we'd found each other again, life had taken him away from me. Tears streamed down my face as I thought about all the moments we'd never get to share, but my thoughts were cut short as I heard a faint cry behind me. I turned to see Luna Olive crumpling to the ground, her body shaking with sobs. Ralph and I rushed to her side, trying to comfort her. "Luna, oh my God, I'm so sorry," I whispered, holding her close. Ralph looked at me, his eyes filled with concern. "She's been struggling since Layla left," he whispered, "and now." I nodded, understanding. Luna Olive had been depressed after Layla's departure, and now, with the loss of her husband, the love of her life, she must be feeling utterly devastated. I could only imagine what she must be going through. The pain, the grief, the sense of loss. It was all so overwhelming. As I held Luna Olive close, trying to offer what little comfort I could, I couldn't help but feel a sense of solidarity with her. We were both grieving, both struggling to come to terms with the cruel hand that life had dealt us. A few days had passed since my father's passing, and the pack was still reeling from the loss. But amidst the grief, something remarkable happened. Luna Olive, my mother, underwent a transformation. She shed her former persona, the trophy wife, and emerged as a strong, determined, and powerful individual. Everyone could see the change in her. Her eyes sparkled with a newfound sense of purpose, and her voice was firm and commanding. She was no longer content to sit on the sidelines. She was ready to take charge. Luna Olive called a meeting with Ralph and me, and we gathered in the pack's conference room. She stood tall, her shoulders back, and announced that she would be taking over the pack's assets and diplomatic affairs. Ralph and I exchanged a surprised glance. "Luna, are you sure?" Ralph asked, his voice laced with concern. Luna Olive nodded, her jaw set. "I'm positive. I want you both to focus on investigating the witches and finding out who was behind my husband's murder." I studied my mother, and for the first time I saw her as a strong, capable leader. I felt a surge of pride and admiration for her. I nodded carefully, agreeing to my mother's plan. Luna Olive's face softened, and she opened her arms, embracing me warmly. In that moment, I felt the warmth of motherly love, and it was like a balm to my soul. I hugged her back tightly, feeling a deep connection to her. "I promise, Mother," I whispered, my voice trembling with emotion. "I'll avenge Father's death. I'll make sure those responsible pay for what they've done." Luna Olive held me close, her eyes shining with tears. "I know you will, Bella. I have faith in you." Bella. The scent of roasted meat and spiced ale filled the air, thick and inviting, mingling with the crackling warmth of the bonfire. The border had been a battlefield just hours ago, but now it was alive with laughter, song, and the relief of survival. I stood at the edge of the gathering, the glow of the fire casting flickering shadows across the warriors who had fought beside me. The tension of war had lifted, if only for tonight, replaced by a rare, fleeting sense of peace. We had won, and for the first time in a long time, we had something worth celebrating. I barely had time to process the moment before a massive arm clapped down on my shoulder, nearly knocking me forward. "Took you long enough to join the party." Tomas grinned down at me, his scarred face flushed with drink, his golden eyes alight with something warmer than battle fury. "Respect. We've been waiting to thank you properly." "Thank me?" I arched a brow. "You were the ones fighting on the front lines." "You fought too," a voice chimed in. Talia, one of the younger warriors, her auburn curls bouncing as she nodded vigorously. "And not just with those machines of yours, you bled with us." "She stitched half of us back together too," Lennon added from where he lounged against a barrel, a half-full tankard in hand. "That counts for something." A murmur of agreement spread through the gathered wolves, warriors turning to me with a newfound light in their eyes. Acceptance. I had spent so long proving myself, waiting for the moment they would stop seeing me as an outsider, and now it had come. I swallowed past the sudden tightness in my throat. I was just doing what needed to be done. Tomas snorted. "That's what makes it matter." To my surprise, he dipped his head slightly, a warrior's gesture of gratitude. One by one, others followed, murmuring words of thanks, clapping my shoulder, some even pulling me into brief, fierce embraces. I had earned their respect on the battlefield, but tonight, they welcomed me as one of their own. The celebration surged on, drinks pouring freely, voices rising in song. Ryan had taken to leading an off-key chorus of some old wolf war song, his laughter breaking between lyrics. Kai stood beside me, silent but present, his usual stoicism softened by the warmth of the firelight. Then, to my surprise, Lennon staggered toward us, ale sloshing over the rim of his tankard as he threw an arm around Kai's shoulders. Kai stiffened, clearly caught off guard. Lennon only grinned. "You know," he mused, voice thick with drink and honesty, "I used to think you were an arrogant bastard." Kai quirked a brow. "And now? Now I know you're an arrogant bastard." Lennon's grin widened, then softened. "But I also know you're my brother." Silence fell between them, the weight of unspoken history pressing in. Kai had always been the stronger one, the steadier one, the one who carried more than he ever let show. Ryan had been reckless, distant until now, until this moment, after everything. It was about damn time. I mean it, Lennon said, voice quieter this time. I want this. I want us to be family, not just in name but in truth. Kai's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his golden eyes. He lifted his tankard. To family, then, Lennon grinned. To family. And just like that, something old and broken mended between them. The fire crackled and popped, sending up occasional embers that danced against the darkened sky. The celebration had begun to quiet, but the energy lingered, a steady hum of victory, of relief, of belonging. A few warriors still sat in clusters, their tankards half full, their voices softer now but no less vibrant. Laughter rumbled like distant thunder, and someone had begun plucking out a slow tune on a worn-out lute. Then, I swear on my fangs, it was a damn sight to see. The voice rang out, rough and full of vigor, cutting through the murmurs. I turned just as Tomas leaned forward, his expression animated, golden eyes gleaming in the firelight, a storyteller in his element. I rolled my eyes, dramatic much. Several warriors shifted, drawing closer. Tomas grinned. You lot weren't on the front lines like we were, but let me tell you, you missed something glorious. Lennon smirked from where he lounged beside Kai, swirling the last of his drink. All right, let's hear it then. Tomas slapped a hand against his knee. It was chaos, pure and simple. The beasts were tearing through the lines, snapping at our throats. I was there, right in the thick of it. Oh, here we go, someone muttered with amusement. Tomas ignored them. And then, out of nowhere, the sky lit up. I thought the gods themselves had sent down their fury, but no, it was her. His hand slashed through the air toward me, and suddenly I was the center of attention. I blinked, caught off guard. She was up high, rifle steady, eyes like a damn hawk. He mimicked the way I had crouched, his movements exaggerated but effective. She picked them off, one by one, and the drones, spirits above, the drones. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the gathered wolves. Tomas stood suddenly, feet planted wide. The beasts came in waves, relentless, bloodthirsty and fast, faster than I'd ever seen, and just when they were about to overwhelm us, those metal creatures of hers shot through the sky like predators. A warrior across the fire chuckled. I thought they were birds at first. Tomas nodded vigorously. Aye, but birds don't think. These things moved like they had minds of their own. They weren't just shooting, they were tracking, calculating, learning. He pointed at me again, grinning, and that was all her. Heat crept up my neck. I wasn't used to being praised so openly. Lennon leaned in, smirking. Don't stop now, Tomas. You haven't mentioned how she got the stubborn bastards who tried to downplay their injuries. A few chuckles rose at that, and I rolled my eyes. They weren't exactly subtle about it. Tomas barked out a laugh. No, but you were ruthless, Bella. Saw straight through them. He turned back to the others. She had her ability on the whole time, didn't even let them lie about where it hurt. Sniffed out every torn muscle, every cracked rib, every fool who thought he could shake off a wound. She saved a lot of us, Talia murmured. Probably more than we realize. Silence followed that, but it was a good kind, a weighty, acknowledging silence. Tomas wasn't done. And don't even get me started on that final push. His hands lifted again, gesturing wildly. She called it. She saw the weakness, saw that their hold on the beasts was breaking. She led us. The warriors nodded, murmuring agreement. And what happened after? Tomas grinned. We won, because of her. A fist thudded against the wooden table in agreement. Another wolf raised their tankard. To Bella, someone said. The words echoed, growing stronger. To Bella! I exhaled, something tight and unfamiliar pressing against my ribs. Tomas smirked. Say what you want, but if anyone deserves to be Luna, it's her. The murmurs deepened, turning into something real. It wasn't just respect anymore. It was belief. The crowd slowly dispersed, warriors retreating to drink or rest, leaving only a few of us by the fire. Kai remained silent, watchful, his golden gaze unreadable. I turned my attention to one of the older warriors, a man named Roran, who had fought on the front lines with me. He had been wary of me at first, but now his gaze held something else, curiosity. He gestured toward the sky. So, those machines of yours, how do they work? I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. The drones? He nodded. I smirked. You saw them in action. Aye, but I don't understand them. He shook his head. They weren't just following orders. They were thinking. I tapped my temple. That's because I programmed them with adaptive learning software. They don't just follow commands, they observe and respond. Every battle, every movement, they take in data and refine their attacks. If a beast dodges a certain way once, the drone adjusts. Next time, it doesn't miss. Roran let out a low whistle. And you made those? I nodded. He let out a breath, shaking his head. Spirits above, you're wasted as just a warrior. Talia leaned in. You didn't just fight, you outthought them. That's what won us the battle. A few others murmured in agreement. You deserve to be Luna, she continued, not just because of your strength, because of your mind. Something clenched in my chest. Luna. That title had always felt distant, almost unreachable. But now they were looking at me like I belonged there. Kai spoke then, voice quiet but firm. She's more than capable. His words carried weight. A moment of silence passed. Then Roran grinned. Well then, I suppose we'll just have to see how things play out. He lifted his tankard again and the others followed suit. I exhaled, my fingers brushing against the flower still tucked behind my ear. Tonight, the battlefield stories had turned into something more. Tonight, I hadn't just earned respect. I had earned belief. And that was a different kind of victory altogether. The music changed, the steady rhythm of drums giving way to something softer, more fluid. I wasn't sure who started the dance, but soon enough, warriors had taken to the open space around the fire, their movements wild and unrestrained, a celebration of life in its rawest form. I wasn't one for dancing, but tonight I let myself be. I stepped into the firelight, my body moving with the music, following the rhythm with instinct rather than thought. The world narrowed to the beat, to the warmth of the night, to the sheer joy of being alive. And then Kai joined me. His movements were slower, measured, but there was something undeniably fluid about the way he moved, as if he had always known this dance, as if he had been waiting for me to join him. He reached for me, his fingers brushing mine. A question. I answered by twining my hands with his, letting him lead. The dance was slow, deliberate, our bodies moving in tandem, shadows and fire entwining. And then he reached up, plucking a small white flower from a nearby table. Without a word, he tucked it behind my ear, his fingers lingering just a moment longer than necessary. His gaze was molten gold, steady, certain. You are my wildflower, he murmured, voice barely audible over the music. My breath caught. Kai wasn't the type for grand declarations, but this meant something real. I was his and he was mine. The celebration lasted late into the night, but eventually the fires dimmed, the songs faded, and the warriors retreated to their quarters, sated with food, drink, and laughter. Kai and I walked in silence to our room, the air between us charged with something unspoken. The moment the door closed behind us, he was there, in front of me, around me, against me. His hands framed my face, his lips crashing against mine with a hunger that had been building for too long. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty, only need. We had danced around this for too long. Now we had burned. Bella! The war room was dimly lit, the scent of parchment and ink thick in the air. Maps lay scattered across the table, marked with hastily drawn lines and notations, plans that had now shifted. The battle was over. The border was safe. But the war wasn't. I ran my fingers along the edges of the old, worn notebook in front of me, my mind spinning through the words scribbled inside. Ollie had left behind a trail, one that led straight to the heart of our enemy. Kai stood beside me, arms crossed, golden eyes scanning the notes as if he could pull more meaning from them just by glaring hard enough. Lennon, on the other hand, sat slouched in his chair, legs stretched out, fingers drumming absently against the table. The tension in the room was thick, pressing in on me from all sides. I exhaled. Time to begin. We have confirmation, I said, voice steady. Harper's plan failed. The border remains intact, and with Mabel dead, they've lost their strongest advantage. Lennon let out a slow whistle. Never thought I'd see the day. Kai didn't look up. Then where did they retreat? I flipped through the notebook, my fingers trailing over Ollie's hurried notes. The ruins forest. Kai sat up straighter. You're sure? I nodded. Ollie wrote about it here. He suspected they had a fallback point in the ruins, but he didn't have the proof at the time. He must have found something after he was taken. Kai's jaw tensed. Then that's where we go. The decision was instant. No hesitation. No debate. Just certainty. I met his gaze, something unspoken passing between us. We had fought too hard, lost too much. Ollie was still out there. We weren't leaving him behind. Lennon let out a heavy sigh, rubbing his face. "You're both insane." I quirked a brow. "That's not news." He shook his head, but there was something softer in his gaze now. "I mean it. You just finished a battle, and now you're walking straight into another. Do either of you know how to take a damn break?" Kai smirked. "No." Lennon groaned. "Figures." I leaned forward. "We don't have time to waste. If Harper and Layla made it back to the ruins, they'll have regrouped. That means stronger defenses, reinforcements, more traps." Kai's fingers tapped against the table. "And Ollie?" I swallowed. "If he's still alive, they're keeping him close. He knew too much." Lennon swore under his breath. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The weight of what we were about to do settled over us, cold and unrelenting. Then Lennon stood, running a hand through his hair. "Fine." His voice was gruff, edged with reluctant acceptance. "But if you two get yourselves killed, I'm going to be really pissed off." A small, wry smile tugged at my lips. "Noted." The night stretched around us, vast and quiet. The fires had burned low, their embers glowing faintly against the dark earth. Most of the warriors had retired, leaving the border eerily still, a stark contrast to the battlefield it had been just days before. Lennon and I sat on the steps of one of the wooden watchtowers, the scent of damp earth and smoke lingering in the air. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable, but it was heavy. Too much left unsaid. I pulled my knees up to my chest, staring at the distant treetops. The ruins forest loomed in the back of my mind, but right now something else gnawed at me. Something deeper, something raw. Lennon must have sensed it because he sighed, rubbing his hand over his face. "All right, out with it." I glanced at him. "Out with what?" He gave me a look. "You've been brooding since sunset." I scoffed. "I don't brood," he snorted. "You absolutely do. Now spill." I hesitated. Part of me didn't want to say it out loud, didn't want to give voice to the ache in my chest. But another part of me, the part that had held everything in for far too long, needed to let it out. I exhaled. I didn't get enough time with him. Lennon's expression sobered instantly. I swallowed, fingers tightening around the fabric of my pants. "Dad, I didn't get enough time." Lennon was silent for a moment before he let out a breath, his gaze distant. "None of us did." I shook my head. "But you had more than me." My voice wavered. "I barely got to know him." Lennon turned to fully face me, his brows furrowed. "Bells, that's not your fault." I clenched my jaw. "I know, but it doesn't change anything." The weight of regret pressed against my ribs, suffocating. I should have spent more time with him. I should have talked to him more. I should have... Lennon's voice cut through the spiral of guilt. "He loved you, you know." My throat tightened. Lennon leaned back on his hands, staring up at the sky. "More than anything." I swallowed hard, blinking against the sting in my eyes. "You sure?" Lennon let out a quiet, almost disbelieving laugh. "Am I sure? Bella, his office was covered in your baby pictures. I don't think a single wall was empty." My breath hitched. "He used to talk about you all the time," Lennon continued, his voice softer now. "Even when he thought you were gone, he never stopped." I turned my face away, pressing my fingers against my eyes. "That's not fair." Lennon's expression darkened. "No, it's not." My shoulders trembled. "He didn't deserve to die." "No," Lennon agreed. "He didn't." That was what made it unbearable. He should still be here. He should be standing at the front lines, leading, fighting. He should be here, alive. A choked sob escaped before I could stop it. Lennon shifted beside me, and then his arm was around my shoulders, pulling me into his side. I didn't fight it, didn't resist as I buried my face against him, my body racked with silent cries. "I miss him," I whispered. Lennon's grip tightened. "Me too." The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the ghosts of things unsaid. After a while, I pulled back, wiping my face with the sleeve of my coat. Lennon didn't say anything, just gave me time to catch my breath. But as soon as I did, another weight pressed down on me. "Oli," I murmured. Lennon's brows furrowed. "What about him?" I wrapped my arms around myself. "He's been through so much already. I don't want to lose him too." Lennon exhaled. "You won't." I shook my head. "You don't know that." "No," he admitted, "but I know you, and I know you won't stop until you get him back." A lump formed in my throat. What if I'm too late? Lennon turned to me, his gaze steady, unwavering. You won't be. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. I let out a slow, shaky breath. Lennon nudged my shoulder. Listen to me, Bells. You have done the impossible over and over again. You survived when no one thought you would. You took down Isabella. You kept the border standing. You can do this too. A fresh wave of emotion surged in my chest. I turned to him, searching his face. You really think so? Lennon smirked. I know so. I let out a shaky laugh, wiping at my face again. You're annoying when you're right. Lennon chuckled. It's one of my many talents. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the whirlwind inside me. Ollie was out there. He was alive, and I was going to bring him home. I wasn't alone. I had Kai, I had Lennon and my other brothers, and I had the strength to keep going, even through the loss, even through the pain, because I still had something worth fighting for. The silence between us stretched, but it wasn't empty. It was filled with the weight of memories, of loss, of people left behind. I let out a shaky breath, my fingers gripping my coat. Mom must be. I trailed off, unable to say the words. My brother nodded, his gaze distant. Yeah. I swallowed hard. And the others, they probably think we're dead. The thought twisted inside me like a knife. Our mother, our brothers, they had already lost so much. First me, then Dad, and now Ollie was missing too. Lennon sighed, running a hand through his hair. They're strong. They'll hold on. But for how long? My voice was barely above a whisper. How much more can they take before they break? Lennon turned to me, his expression unreadable. You think this is your fault, don't you? I didn't answer, because I did. I always had. If I had never been taken as a child, if I had never disappeared, maybe things would have been different. Maybe Dad would still be alive. Maybe Mom wouldn't have had to grieve for me, only to lose him too. Maybe Ollie wouldn't have been caught up in this war. Lennon exhaled sharply. Bells. I kept my eyes on the ground. No. His voice was firm. You don't get to do that. I blinked up at him, startled. Lennon's gaze burned into mine. None of this is on you. Not Dad's death. Not Ollie being taken. Not any of it. I clenched my jaw. If I hadn't... Stop. His voice was steel. You were a child. What happened to you wasn't your fault. And everything after, that's on Harper. That's on the people who actually made those choices, not you. Tears stung my eyes again. But if I had been there, maybe? You think Dad would want you blaming yourself for this? Lennon's voice softened, but his words still cut deep. He loved you, Bella. He never stopped. And he sure as hell wouldn't want you carrying this weight alone. I pressed my lips together, breathing through the tightness in my chest. Lennon nudged my shoulder, his tone lighter now. You're not responsible for every bad thing that's happened, but you are responsible for keeping us together, for keeping us going, and you've done a damn good job of that. I let out a small, shaky laugh. You really think so? Lennon smirked. I know so. I took a deep breath. He was right. I wasn't the villain in this story. I wasn't the one who had torn our family apart, but I would be the one to bring them back together. The night was cool, a stark contrast to the heat of the battle that had raged just days before. The scent of damp earth filled my lungs as I adjusted the strap of my pack, making sure my weapons were secure. Kai stood beside me, his presence steady, grounding. He wasn't one for unnecessary words, and right now, that was exactly what I needed. Lennon, however, had plenty to say. I still think this is reckless, he muttered, arms crossed as he eyed us both, but I know there's no talking you out of it. I met his gaze. No, there isn't, he exhaled sharply. Thought so. A pause. Then he stepped forward, his usual cocky smirk replaced by something more serious. You two watch each other's backs, all right? Kai inclined his head. Always. Lennon's eyes flicked to me. And you, try not to get into too much trouble. I smirked. No promises. He let out a rough laugh before his expression softened. Then, before I could react, he pulled me into a tight hug. I stiffened for half a second before melting into it. Lennon and I had been through hell together. This wasn't just a farewell. It was an understanding, a promise that we'd see each other again. When he pulled back, he glanced at Kai, then shook his head. You better keep her alive. Kai's expression didn't change, but his grip on his weapon tightened. That was never in question. Lennon exhaled. Then go, before I change my mind and drag you both back. I shot him one last grin before turning toward the darkened horizon. The ruins forest awaited. We didn't look back. Bella. The sky churned with storm clouds, thick and low, casting the battlefield in an eerie half-light. The air was thick with the scent of burnt flesh, wet fur, and the metallic sting of blood. Screams and snarls tangled together in a chaotic symphony, the ground trembling beneath the weight of bodies clashing, breaking and falling. I had seen war before. I had felt its weight in every wound I stitched, in every heartbeat I fought to save. But this was something else. The magical beasts came in waves, their forms flickering with unnatural energy, their movements sharper, faster, unnatural. I had no doubt now. Someone was controlling them. Someone was feeding them power, and I was going to find out who. But first, we had to survive. Push forward. Kai's voice cut through the chaos like a blade, his massive form cutting through the oncoming beasts with raw, relentless force. Claw, metal, and flesh met in a brutal dance, his every movement calculated, efficient. Lennon was at his side, his twin blades slicing through the air in quick, decisive arcs. He was smaller, faster, dodging and weaving between the massive creatures, his strikes surgical, every movement designed to kill, not wound. And then there were the drones. They moved above us like a storm of metal and fire, sleek, intelligent machines responding to my commands with flawless precision. Each shot was a perfect execution, a clean kill, a decisive strike. I had spent weeks refining them, ensuring that their power remained a tool, not a crutch. My father had always believed in strength through skill, not blind destruction. If he had been here, I knew he would have approved. But he wasn't here, because the wolf that had killed him still lived, and tonight I was going to change that. Bella, we need you back here, now. I turned at the sound of the voice, my boots kicking up dirt as I sprinted back toward the makeshift medical outpost. Warriors stumbled into the tent, their bodies torn, bleeding, barely holding together. The battle wasn't just happening on the field, it was happening here, too. A war against death, a war against time. I tore off my bloodied gloves, grabbing fresh ones. The first warrior, a woman, older, battle-worn, grimaced as I pressed my hand to her ribs. The moment I made contact, I felt the break. A sharp, jagged pain bloomed in my own side, my mind translating the injury in an instant. 3 cracked ribs, I murmured. No lung punctures. You'll live. She chuckled, though it came out more like a wheeze. No time for resting, kid. You're not fighting like this, I said, already wrapping her ribs, ensuring the pressure was tight but not constrictive. I need you on the walls, taking out stragglers. Can you still shoot? She grinned, despite the pain. Always. I moved to the next patient, and the next. Every touch was a map of pain. Every injury a puzzle I had to solve before the body failed. I had spent my life learning to fix what war broke. But tonight, I was more than just a healer. Tonight, I was a soldier. The battlefield was a graveyard waiting to be filled. Smoke curled through the air, thick and acrid, mixing with the metallic scent of blood. The sky was a canvas of fire and shadow, the flickering torches barely illuminating the chaos below. Beasts howled, blades clashed, bullets cut through the night. And in the center of it all we stood, wolves fighting with steel and intelligence. I moved through the war zone, my sniper rifle slung across my back, my boots kicking up ash. Around me, the warriors of the border pack fought like demons, but they weren't alone. My drones danced above them, sleek and ruthless, adapting with every shot, every movement. I had built them to fight with us, not for us. Father would have wanted that. This was his ideals. I refused to create weapons of mass destruction. I refused to let war turn me into something my father would not recognize. Bella! Kai's voice rang out across the battlefield. Incoming, left flank. I spun on my heel just in time to see the wave of magical beasts surging from the tree line. Fangs glinting, bodies unnaturally fast, eyes glowing with unnatural light. No, not unnatural. Amplified, controlled. I gripped my teeth and pressed my earpiece. Squad 4, divert fire to the left flank. Hold the line. Do not let them break through. The warriors around me moved instantly. No hesitation, no questioning. They trusted me. Even now, in the thick of battle, they followed my command without doubt. The realization sent a strange, unexpected warmth through my chest. I had earned this, not just with my weapons, not just with my medical skills, with my choices, with the way I had stood beside them, fought beside them, bled beside them, and they respected me for it. I raised my sniper rifle, dropping to one knee, my mind calculating distances, angles, wind speed, precision over power, intelligence over destruction. My finger squeezed the trigger. 1. A beast collapsed mid-leap, a bullet through its skull. 2. Another staggered, its front legs snapping under the force of my shot. 3. A clean kill. No wasted bullets, no unnecessary force. Kai fought just ahead of me, his claws a blur of silver and red, his movements precise, deadly. Lennon moved like a ghost, dodging through the battlefield, twin blades flashing, cutting down anything that got too close. And behind them, our people stood firm. Their armor was battered, their bodies bloodied, but they did not waver. Because this time, we weren't just fighting for survival. We were fighting for something bigger. We were fighting for each other. The battle raged for what felt like hours. Endless waves, relentless attacks. For every beast we cut down, another took its place. My breathing was ragged, sweat dripping down my face, but I couldn't stop. I wouldn't stop. Not when my people were still fighting, not when I could still stand. I pivoted, raising my rifle, but before I could fire, a massive beast barreled toward me. Too close, too fast. I had no time to dodge. A massive figure crashed into it from the side, knocking it off course. A warrior, one of ours. I recognized him, Tomas, one of the border wolves. He had been skeptical of me in the beginning, unwilling to trust an outsider, a strategist who worked with machines. But now he stood between me and death. And when the beast lunged again, he didn't hesitate. He tore it apart. When the creature finally collapsed at his feet, he turned to me, blood streaking his face, his breathing heavy, and then he grinned. "You all right, Bella?" "Not girl, not outsider." "Bella," I exhaled sharply, a small smirk tugging at my lips. I had it under control. His chuckle was breathless, full of adrenaline. "Sure you did." And then without another word he was gone, back into the fray. Something in my chest tightened. I had spent so long proving myself, pushing myself, refusing to show weakness. But I wasn't alone. Not anymore. These warriors, my people, they had come to trust me, to respect me, and in that moment I swore to myself I would not let them down. The beasts were weakening. I could feel it. Their movements weren't as sharp, their coordination was fraying, and I knew why. Their control was breaking. Someone had been amplifying them, feeding them power, but whoever it was, they were losing their grip. We just had to finish this. I tapped my earpiece again, my voice steady, unwavering. "This is it. Final push. Drive them back." A chorus of acknowledgments rang through my comm, and then we moved. Kai led the charge, his massive form cutting through the battlefield like a force of nature. Lennon was a blur of steel and shadow, his blades finding every weak point. And me? I stood my ground, my sniper rifle an extension of my body, picking off stragglers, ensuring that every shot counted. The battle raged, but the tide was turning. The wolves fought harder, faster, their new weapons an extension of their own bodies. My drones adapted, their calculations shifting in real time, adjusting to the beast's movements. And then, through the smoke and bodies, I saw it. The wild wolf, the one that had taken everything from me. It stood on the far ridge, massive, its fur streaked with scars and fresh blood. Its eyes were cold, pitiless. It had killed before. It would kill again. Not tonight. I dropped to one knee, my sniper rifle already aligned, my heartbeat syncing with the machine in my hands. Breathe in. The world narrowed. Breathe out. My finger tightened around the trigger. A shot rang out. The wolf's body jerked, its legs faltering beneath it. A second later, it crashed to the ground, its final breath rattling in its throat. I let out a slow exhale, my hands steady. I had done it. I had avenged my father. But before I could process the victory, a movement caught my eye. Behind the fallen beast, standing frozen on the ridge, was Mabel. Our eyes met, and for the first time I saw fear in hers. She knew. She knew that I knew. She had been the one amplifying the beasts, twisting them into weapons against us. She had commanded them, sent them to slaughter my father, my pack, my people. She had thought she was untouchable. She had been wrong. I didn't hesitate. I pulled the trigger. The bullet struck true, and Isabella crumpled without a sound. For a moment, everything was silent. And then the beasts, those monstrous things that had fought so viciously, howled. A single, mournful, wretched sound that echoed across the battlefield. And then they ran. One by one they retreated, their unnatural coordination breaking apart, their ferocity dimming. because the one who had controlled them was gone, and just like that, the battle was over. The aftermath was quiet, peaceful, never peaceful. The battlefield was littered with the fallen, the scent of blood and fire still thick in the air, but for the first time in a long time we had won. Kai stood at my side, his face streaked with dirt and blood, his breathing heavy. Lennon approached, his expression unreadable. He glanced at Isabella's body in the distance, then back at me. "You got her." I nodded. A long silence stretched between us before he finally sighed. "Good." I turned my gaze to the wolves, my pack, my people, who stood among the wreckage. Some were tending to the wounded, others stood in stunned silence, processing the weight of the battle. One by one, they looked at me, and for the first time I saw something in their eyes that hadn't been there before. Respect. I had healed them. I had fought beside them, and I had led them to victory. My father was gone, but his legacy wasn't, and neither was I. 1, 2, 3, until finally the battlefield fell silent. The last of the beasts collapsed, its twisted, unnatural body shuddering one final time before going still. And just like that, it was over. The air was thick with exhaustion, the weight of the battle settling over us like a heavy cloak. But we had won. For the first time in so long, we had won. I let out a slow breath, lowering my rifle. My hands were shaking, not from fear, not from weakness, from the sheer, overwhelming reality of it. Around me, the warriors began to take stock, checking the wounded, tending to the fallen. And then, Tomas, bloodied and exhausted, clapped me on the back. "Hell of a fight, Bella." Others nodded, murmured agreements. Warriors who had once questioned me now stood beside me, their gazes filled with respect. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. This wasn't just my victory. It was ours. And it was only the beginning. Bella. The night sky was an ocean of ink, the stars drowning in the glow of flickering fires. Smoke curled through the air, thick with the metallic scent of blood and the bitter tang of medicine. The battlefield was quiet now, but the aftermath of war lingered like a specter, whispering through the broken bodies of my packmates. But I had no time to grieve. Not yet. The hum of machinery filled my ears as I stood before the sleek silver bodies of my latest creations. The drones gleamed under the torchlight, their sharp angles and reinforced plating casting deep shadows across the ground. They weren't ordinary machines anymore, not after what I'd done to them. I reached out, running my fingers over the nearest drone's cool surface. "You're ready," I murmured. Kai stood beside me, arms crossed, his sharp eyes assessing the row of hovering machines. "I still think it's insane," he muttered. "Drones in a war fought by beasts and claws." I smirked, pressing a button on the control panel strapped to my wrist. The drones lifted off in perfect synchronization, their dark bodies shifting like shadows against the sky. "That's the problem with tradition," I said. "It makes you blind to possibility." Lennon let out a low whistle as the drones moved in formation, their movements fluid and eerily precise. "I'll admit," he said, watching one of them weave effortlessly between the trees, "this might actually work." "It will work," I corrected. "I've coded each of them with adaptive targeting. They'll scan for movement patterns, body heat, and even scent traces. They won't just attack, they'll learn how the enemy moves. Each battle makes them stronger." Kai sighed. "So now we have wolves and machines hunting in packs?" I glanced at him, my smirk fading. "We don't have the numbers to fight this war the old way, Nate. If we keep letting those monsters dictate the battlefield, we'll lose. This gives us an edge." He didn't argue. He didn't have to. We both knew the truth. I tapped another command, and the drones dispersed, their sleek forms vanishing into the trees like silent phantoms. A moment later, the howl of a scout unit split the air. My pack was under attack, again. "Go," I ordered, already turning away. "Let me know how the drones perform." "Where are you going?" Ryan called after me. I didn't stop. The medical camp. Pain and precision. Hands of healing. The medical camp was a battlefield of its own. One fought not with claws and fangs, but with stitches and steady hands. The air was thick with the scent of blood and herbs, the low murmurs of the wounded mixing with the crackling torches that cast flickering light across their battered bodies. I moved through the rows of cots, my white coat stark against the darkness, my senses stretched thin as I let my ability wash over me. It was an exhausting process, constantly exposing myself to the pain of others, but I had no choice. Pain didn't lie, and in a place like this, lies could kill. The first patient was a young warrior, no older than 18. His leg was wrapped in makeshift bandages, and though his face was tight with discomfort, he waved me off when I approached. "It's nothing serious," he said, trying to sit up. I frowned, placing my fingers lightly against his calf. The moment my skin made contact, a sharp, radiating ache pulsed through me, a jagged heat that spread from his shin to his knee. I sucked in a slow breath, analyzing the sensation. Fractured, not just bruised. "You're lying," I said flatly. His jaw tensed. "I can still fight." I pressed harder against the injury, making him suck in a sharp breath. "You won't be fighting with a broken leg. If you try, the bone will snap, and you'll be off the battlefield for good." His hands clenched into fists, his pride warring with common sense. I knew this battle well, the desperation to prove oneself, the fear of being seen as weak. But there was no room for arrogance in war. "Let me set it," I continued, my tone leaving no room for argument. "If you listen to me, you'll be back on your feet in days. If you don't, you'll be crippled." He exhaled shakily, then nodded. "Fine." I got to work, adjusting the position of his leg before wrapping it tightly with reinforced bandages. He winced, but stayed silent, his breathing even. I murmured quiet instructions, making sure he understood how to keep weight off it, how to heal properly. By the time I was done, he looked at me with something closer to respect than resentment. "Thank you," he muttered. I nodded, already moving on to the next patient. Further down the tent, a veteran warrior sat with his arms crossed, watching me carefully. His left side was covered in old scars, but it was his right arm that caught my attention. It was bleeding sluggishly from deep claw marks, the edges raw and inflamed. I stepped toward him, but he shook his head. "Not necessary." I ignored him and placed my fingers on his wrist. A wave of heat and pressure flooded through me, not just the fresh wound, but something deeper, hidden. The ache in his shoulder told me everything I needed to know. "You dislocated this," I murmured, meeting his gaze. His lips pressed into a thin line. "It's nothing." I raised a brow. "Then why can't you lift your arm?" Silence. I sighed, pushing back my exhaustion as I reached for his shoulder. "This is going to hurt," I warned. Before he could argue, I snapped his shoulder back into place. A strangled grunt left his lips, his body jerking. But then he exhaled, rolling his arm experimentally. Relief flickered across his face. I smirked. "Still nothing." He gave me a sharp look before shaking his head with the smallest hint of a smile. "Fine. You win, girl." I moved on. The next patient was the kind that frustrated me most. The liars. The ones who thought they could outsmart pain, who convinced themselves they were fine when their bodies were screaming otherwise. A soldier sat on the edge of a cot, his expression carefully blank. His tunic was torn at the waist, revealing a shallow cut along his ribs. I crossed my arms. "What else?" He blinked. "That's it, liar." I stepped closer, letting my ability sink into him. At first I only felt the sharp sting of the cut, but beneath it, hidden beneath layers of stubbornness and adrenaline, was something worse. A slow, dull pressure in his lower abdomen. Not a wound, internal damage. My stomach clenched. If I hadn't checked, I grabbed a clean scalpel. "Lie down. Now." His expression flickered. "What?" "You're bleeding inside," I snapped. "My patient's running thin. If I don't stop it, you'll be dead in an hour." The blood drained from his face. He obeyed. I worked fast, peeling back the layers of his deception, as efficiently as I peeled back his tunic. The wound was hidden beneath the surface, a rupture near his kidney. He never would have known until it was too late. "You should have said something," I muttered, pressing gauze against the incision as I worked. "I didn't think." "Exactly," I cut in, my voice sharp. "You didn't think. You would have died, and for what? Pride? Denial?" He swallowed hard, shame flashing in his eyes. "I'm sorry." I exhaled through my nose. Apologized by surviving. The operation was quick, my hands steady even as exhaustion gnawed at my edges. By the time I was done, his breathing had evened out, his body sinking into the cot. I sat back, rubbing my forehead. My entire body ached, each borrowed wound lingering like an echo beneath my skin. But I couldn't stop. Not yet. I adjusted my white coat, the only thing that separated me from the warriors who had bled for our survival. It felt almost ironic, wearing something so pristine in a place soaked with suffering. As I moved between the injured, I kept my ability activated, feeling the echoes of pain ripple through my own body. Some wounds were easy to detect, deep gashes, shattered bones, punctured organs. Others were hidden, buried beneath bravado and stubborn pride. And those were the ones I was hunting. A soldier sat near the back, his arm hanging limply at his side. He was talking, laughing even, his good hand gripping a mug of water. But the moment my eyes locked onto him, I felt the sharp, white-hot pain radiating from his ribs. "Take off your shirt," I ordered, stepping closer. He blinked, his smile faltering. "What?" "You have 3 fractured ribs," I said flatly, "and if you keep ignoring them, one of them will puncture your lung." His jaw tensed. "I can still fight." I leaned in, my voice dropping to a whisper. "And if you collapse in the middle of battle, you'll be a liability instead of a warrior. Take it off." A tense silence stretched between us before he finally sighed and pulled his shirt over his head, revealing the mottled bruises and deep purple swelling. I exhaled through my nose, my fingers already pressing against his skin, mapping out the breaks beneath my touch. "You're lucky," I murmured. "If you'd waited another day, it would have been worse." As I worked, stitching wounds, resetting dislocated joints, and forcing stubborn warriors to acknowledge their pain, I felt the exhaustion clawing at my edges. My head throbbed from using my ability for so long, the constant sensation of borrowed pain threatening to pull me under. But I couldn't stop. Not when my pack needed me. Hours passed. The camp quieted as soldiers succumbed to exhaustion, their bodies finally allowing rest. I stood at the edge of it all, watching the slow rise and fall of sleeping chests, the flickering torches casting everything in golden shadow. "You should rest too." Kai's voice was softer now, the sharpness from earlier replaced with something heavier. I turned to see him leaning against a post, arms crossed. His dark eyes held mine, searching. I swallowed. "I will." He stepped closer, his presence steady, grounding. "You always say that, and you never do." A bitter smile tugged at my lips, because there's always something else to fix, someone else to save. He sighed, reaching out to brush a loose strand of hair from my face. His touch was warm, careful. "And who's going to save you, Bella?" The question hit harder than it should have. I looked away, my gaze drifting to the battlefield beyond the camp, the place where blood had been spilled, where bodies had been broken, where my father had died. "I don't have the luxury of being saved," I whispered. Kai exhaled sharply, but he didn't argue. Instead, he did something far worse. "Bella." "How long have you been doing this?" he asked. I sighed, wiping my hands on my coat. "Since nightfall." "It's almost morning." I blinked, surprised. Had it really been that long? He pulled me into his arms. For a moment I stood frozen, my body tense. But then the warmth seeped in, the quiet strength of him pressing against the fractures inside me. And just for a second I let myself breathe. "Bella." The ruins forest loomed before us, its canopy thick with ancient trees that swallowed the light whole. A hush settled over the land, the kind that preceded a storm. The air was damp with the scent of moss and decay, and every step felt like an intrusion into something forgotten. Kai walked beside me, silent but alert, his hand never straying far from his blade. We had barely passed the threshold when a rustling in the underbrush made me spin, dagger in hand. A shadow emerged from behind a gnarled oak, and I was ready to strike, until I saw him. Hunter. Dressed in a loose tunic, a satchel slung across his shoulder, he grinned at me like this was any other day. "Fancy seeing you two here." I exhaled sharply, lowering my weapon. "Hunter, what the hell are you doing here?" He held up a weathered sketchbook. "Would you believe me if I said I came to draw the ruins? The landscapes here are dangerous," I finished, stepping toward him. "This place isn't some scenic retreat. Harper and Layla are hiding somewhere in these ruins, and we don't know what kind of traps they've set." Hunter's expression darkened. "Harper's here?" He closed his sketchbook and slung the strap across his chest. "Then I'm coming with you." Harper. "Save your breath, Bella. If Harper's involved, I'm not turning back." Kai crossed his arms, exhaling through his nose. "This isn't a game." Hunter met his gaze, unyielding. "I never said it was." The silence stretched between them, thick with tension. Finally, Kai sighed and turned toward the path ahead. "Fine, but keep up." I touched Hunter's arm briefly. "Stay close to me." He grinned again, but there was a flicker of something deeper in his eyes. "Always." And so the three of us ventured into the ruins. The deeper we went, the more unnatural the forest became. Vines coiled around twisted pillars of crumbling stone, their ancient carvings worn but still whispering of a time long past. Something watched us here. I could feel it, the weight of unseen eyes pressing against my skin. We stepped into a clearing, and my breath hitched. A vast wall, half swallowed by creeping ivy, loomed before us. Murals. I moved closer, brushing away the leaves with trembling fingers. Time had chipped away at the paint, but the images remained hauntingly clear. A witch, her arms outstretched, her hair billowing like wildfire. A werewolf, his golden eyes alight with hunger. He knelt before her, hands clasped, devotion etched into his face. Another panel, the werewolf standing taller, stronger, a crown upon his head. The witch stood behind him now, her hands empty. The final image made my stomach twist, the witch, alone, abandoned, her body curling inward as darkness swallowed her whole. Hunter whispered beside me, his voice eerily soft. A witch who gave her love and power to a werewolf, and he left her behind. I turned to Kai, my pulse quickening. This has to be connected to E. Harper. Kai's jaw tightened. She was obsessed with something beyond mere conquest. Maybe this is it. A gust of wind hissed through the ruins, stirring the dust at our feet. A warning. I forced myself to step away. Come on, we have to keep moving. The mist came suddenly. One moment, the ruins were still. The only sound, our footsteps crunching over stone and brittle leaves. The next, a ghostly fog slithered up from the cracks in the ground, curling around our legs like searching fingers. It was unnaturally thick, too thick, and carried a damp chill that clung to my skin. Kai stopped ahead of me, eyes narrowing as he scanned the shifting white haze. This isn't normal. Hunter exhaled sharply behind me, pulling his coat tighter. Yeah, no shit. You don't usually see horror movie fog creeping in the middle of ancient ruins. The mist coiled higher, swallowing our ankles, then our knees. A strange pressure built in the air, like something unseen pressing down on us. Stay close, I ordered. Hunter's chuckle was forced. Yeah, because getting lost in a haunted ruin sounds like a fun way to die. The fog thickened. It swallowed the trees, the ruins, the path. It swallowed Kai. I turned sharply, reaching for him, but his form was already dissolving into the pale void. Kai! He was right there. I had just seen him, but now he was gone. Hunter's hand brushed my arm. What the hell? His voice cut off. I turned. Hunter was gone too. The mist pressed against my skin like something alive, breathing, curling around my throat, my wrists, my ankles. My pulse pounded. This wasn't just fog, it was something else entirely. A whisper slithered through the air. Bella. I stiffened. The voice was familiar, too familiar. You let me die. My breath caught in my throat. Luther. My heartbeat roared in my ears, drowning out reason. You weren't there, the voice rasped. You could have saved me, but you didn't. My hand clenched around the hilt of my dagger, knuckles white. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. A shadow moved through the fog, tall, broad shoulders, a familiar stance. My stomach clenched. My father. I took a step forward before I could stop myself. You failed us, he whispered. And now you'll fail them too. I forced myself to stop. The mist was toying with me. Bella, he whispered again. The sound wrapped around me, the weight of guilt pressing into my chest. I closed my eyes. No, this isn't real. I exhaled sharply, forcing my mind to clear. If I kept listening, if I kept believing, I'd be pulled in. Kai, Hunter. I had to find them. I turned, my boots scuffing against the stone. Kai, Hunter! No response, only whispers, only shadows. A figure loomed in the mist, too close. My grip tightened on my dagger as I spun. Kai. I exhaled sharply, relief surging through me. Kai, thank the. He lunged at me. Instinct screamed through my veins. I dodged just as the blade of his sword slashed where I'd stood. My heart slammed against my ribs. Now his eyes were wrong, glazed, empty. His mouth twisted into something cruel. You've always been reckless, Bella. His voice was cold, not his. Always running headfirst into ruin. I took a step back, my pulse hammering. Kai, it's me. You think you can save them? He snarled, stepping forward. His sword gleamed in the dim light. You couldn't even save your own father. A knife twisted in my chest. Bella. You think you can save them? He snarled, stepping forward. His sword gleamed in the dim light. You couldn't even save your own father. A knife twisted in my chest. I refused to believe it. This wasn't real. Kai was not my enemy. The fog was lying. I stood my ground, forcing my breath steady. You're not real. A flicker of hesitation crossed his face. Good. You're just another trick, I continued, voice firm. Another lie. The mist shuddered. The illusion of Kai faltered. His form wavered, then shattered like glass. Gone. But the fog remained. A new voice slithered through the mist. You'll never be enough for her. Kai, his real voice, but laced with something wrong. I turned sharply, scanning the haze. Kai! A figure moved through the mist. Nathaniel, rigid, fists clenched. He didn't turn, didn't answer. She'll leave you, just like the rest. The voice came from the fog, its edges curling like smoke. Kai's shoulders stiffened. I saw the tension in his jaw, the way his hands shook. I moved toward him. Kai, don't listen to it. The mist pressed in closer. You think she needs you? The voice whispered. She doesn't. Kai exhaled, slow, controlled. I know that's not true. The mist shuddered. She loves you now, but one day she won't. Kai closed his eyes. Shut up. He closed his eyes, his breath slow and measured, but his fists clenched tighter. The mist pressed around us, thick and suffocating, feeding off the hesitation, the flicker of doubt. I reached out, my fingers brushing his wrist. Kai, it's lying. He flinched at my touch, but his grip loosened, his breathing steadied. She's using you, the voice hissed. She'll leave, just like they all did. Kai exhaled sharply, shaking his head as if dispelling a fog inside his own mind. I know what you're doing, he murmured, his voice steadier now. You want me to believe I'm nothing more than a weapon to her. His eyes flickered open, sharp, unwavering. But you forget one thing. The mist quivered. Kai smirked, the expression cold and edged with defiance. She's just as bad as I am. The fog shrank back, recoiling as if struck. A scream, high and unnatural, ripped through the ruins, and for a brief, gut-wrenching moment I felt the mist pull at me like icy hands clutching at my ribs. And then, it shattered. The fog thinned, curling away like dying smoke. The ruins came back into focus. Broken stone, twisted vines, the faint glow of the moon peeking through the cracks in the canopy. Hunter stumbled into view, coughing violently. His face was pale, his hands trembling as he braced himself against a fallen pillar. He looked up at us, his breath ragged. What the hell was that? Kai exhaled, rolling his shoulders like he was shaking off the last remnants of the fog's hold. A trick, a damn good one. I swallowed, my throat raw. Did you hear something? Hunter let out a dry, humorless laugh. Oh yeah, heard some real fun things, like how I was a mistake, how I should have just stayed behind. His jaw tightened, but there was something hollow in his expression. I knew it wasn't real, but... He broke off, shaking his head. I understood. The whispers didn't just lie. They took the smallest cracks inside us, the ones we tried to ignore, the fears we buried, and made them bleed. I stepped toward him, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. They were illusions, Hunter. You know that, right? His lips pressed together, his throat working like he was trying to swallow something thick. Finally, he nodded. Yeah, I know. Silence stretched between us, heavy and unspoken. Then Kai sighed, sheathing his sword. Let's keep moving. Hunter snorted, shaking off the lingering unease. Right, because nothing weird ever happens when you say that. A small, tired laugh escaped me, and the tension fractured. Just a little. But as we stepped forward, deeper into the ruins, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had watched us in the mist. And that next time, it wouldn't let go so easily. The ruins gave way to something worse. A temple, its pillars fractured, but still breathing with ancient power. At its heart, an altar stood, towering and grotesque. An eerie totem loomed upon it. The wood was gnarled and blackened, its form twisted into something barely recognizable as a wolf. Deep gouges marred its surface, as if something had clawed from the inside out. Hunter shuddered. I don't like this. Kai took a step closer, his fingers hovering over the switch embedded in the stone. This looks like... I pressed it. The floor trembled. The walls groaned. A sound, low, guttural, monstrous, crawled from the depths of the temple. The totem split open with a sickening crack, and from it a wolf emerged. A massive, decayed creature, its fur hanging in tattered clumps, bones protruding through rotting flesh. Its eyes burned with unholy fire, its maw twisted into something almost human as it spoke. Bella. The voice was not its own, it was hers. Layla. She stepped forward, each movement labored yet fueled by pure, undying rage. You did this to me. I gripped my dagger, my breath shallow. Layla? She laughed, a broken, bitter sound. No, not anymore. Your cruelty made sure of that. I swallowed, my mind racing. I didn't. You killed me. Her words struck like iron. No. Your war, your defiance, it turned me into this. Her voice cracked, a haunting echo of the girl I once knew. You think yourself righteous, but you leave destruction in your wake. You steal, you slaughter, and you call it justice. Her body twisted, bones snapping into new, unnatural angles. And now, you will pay. Kai moved in front of me, his sword unsheathed. Bella didn't turn you into a monster. You let Harper twist you into one. Layla, or whatever this thing was, snarled, lunging at him with inhuman speed. Kai barely dodged, rolling aside as her claws gouged deep into the stone. I stepped forward, my voice steady despite the terror thrumming beneath my skin. Layla, listen to me. Harper used you. Don't say her name. Her voice splintered into a feral growl, her body convulsing. I have no use for your pity, only your blood. The temple shook as she lunged again, this time at me. I barely had time to dodge before her claws sliced through the air where I had stood. Kai was already moving, his blade flashing in the dim light. Ethan circled to the side, reaching into his satchel. What he hoped to find there, I didn't know. I had seconds to decide. The girl I once knew was gone. The creature before me knew nothing but pain. But if there was still a part of her left, a part that could be saved, I had to find it. Before she tore me apart, Bella. The ruins forest was eerily silent, the dense canopy above swallowing the moonlight, casting shifting shadows across the decaying remnants of a civilization long lost. The air was thick with damp earth, the scent of moss and rotting wood mingling with something sharper, something unnatural. My breath came in slow, controlled inhales, but my pulse pounded in my ears. The ruins around us felt ancient, almost sentient, as if they had witnessed countless tragedies before this moment. And now they would witness Layla's end. She stood a few paces ahead, her figure outlined against the pale moonlight breaking through the trees. Dark energy crackled around her fingers, pulsing with anger, desperation. Blood streaked her face, her once pristine clothing torn and muddied, but her eyes, her silver, stormy eyes, were still alight with the same bitterness that had festered in her heart for years. You always take what isn't yours, she hissed, her voice raw with fury. First my place, then my power. Her lips curled, teeth bared. And now, you come to take my life? Kai moved beside me, his stance unwavering, his golden eyes locked on Layla with lethal intent. You brought this on yourself, he said, voice low and steady, a predator waiting for the kill. Everything you've done, every life you've destroyed, this is the consequence. Layla's hands trembled before she clenched them into fists, forcing control over the magic writhing around her. You think you're any better than me? She spat, stepping closer. You think she is? Her gaze snapped to mine, and for a moment there was something almost unhinged in her expression. Tell me, Bella, do you even realize what you are? What you've done? I tightened my grip on my blade. I know exactly who I am. Do you? She laughed, a sharp, broken sound. Because from where I stand, you're nothing but a thief, a fraud. I didn't flinch, but she wasn't finished. You were never meant to be here, she said, voice thick with venom. You should have died all those years ago. Everything, the title, the power, even the people you surround yourself with, it should have been mine. Then take it. Hunter's voice cut through the night like a blade, cold and edged with something primal. He stepped forward, his presence towering, crackling with something I couldn't quite place. Layla turned to him, her sneer faltering. What? If you think you deserve it, Hunter said, his tone even, then take it. For the first time, doubt flickered across her face. Hunter took another step, and something in the air shifted. The ground beneath us trembled, the very forest seeming to pulse with awareness. A low, deep resonance thrummed through the ruins, as if something ancient had awakened. Then it happened. A glow ignited beneath Hunter's skin, spreading like veins of molten gold. His already imposing frame seemed to expand, his golden-brown fur darkening, his eyes flaring with silver fire. A ripple of energy pulsed outward, and I felt it, a force older than anything I had ever known. Hunter wasn't just shifting, he was awakening. Layla stumbled back, her breath hitching. No, that's not possible, she whispered, shaking her head. Your kind was wiped out. You shouldn't exist. Hunter's gaze locked onto hers, and something ancient, something inhuman, stared back, You've played with power beyond your understanding for too long, Layla, he said, his voice layered with something more than just his own. Now face the cost. A low chuckle left Layla's lips, soft at first, then growing sharper, edged with something unhinged. Do you really think you'll leave this forest alive? She taunted, taking a slow step forward. Do you think your little lovers can protect you forever? Her gaze flicked to Kai, then to Hunter, who was still tense, as if something inside him was unraveling. I didn't move, keeping my stance firm. You talk too much, Layla. And you're too blind, she spat, her silver eyes gleaming with malice. You think Kai is yours? That he's always been yours? She laughed, tilting her head. Do you know how easy it would have been for me to take him? If I had just... She trailed off, lifting her fingers to her lips as if reminiscing. Kai's face remained impassive, but his hand tightened around his blade. I knew she was lying, trying to twist the knife in places she thought I was vulnerable. But I wouldn't let her see doubt, wouldn't give her the satisfaction of thinking she could break me. She turned back to me, her voice dropping, filled with something colder. Oli is probably already dead, you know. Something inside me snapped, but I didn't react. Not yet. She watched me closely, hunting for a crack in my composure. Did you really think you'd get to him in time? That he's just waiting for you, untouched, unharmed? Her smirk widened. No, Harper would have broken him by now. If she hasn't killed him, then she's twisted him into something you won't recognize. A slow burn started in my chest, but I forced my breath to remain even. Doesn't it get exhausting, Bella, pretending you can win? She stepped closer, her voice turning almost pitying. You're always running, always fighting, always losing. The border, the people who died because of you, Luther, your father, and Mabel. You're nothing but a trail of destruction. That one hit harder than the rest, but I refused to let her see it. She smiled, sensing the weight of her words. And when you fail again, because you will, who do you think they'll blame? You won't have Nathaniel to hide behind. You won't have Ethan's brute strength to protect you. You'll be alone. She was still trying to get in my head, but I had endured worse. I had already lived through the loss, the guilt, the burden of choices that cost people their lives. I met her gaze, steady. I don't need anyone to protect me, I said, voice even. And you've already lost. That's why you're talking so much. Her face twisted, the flicker of control she had been holding on to slipping through her fingers. With a snarl, she raised her hands, dark energy crackling to life between her fingers. Then let's finish this. The fight erupted in an instant. She struck first, a wave of force blasting toward me. I dodged, rolling across the stone as her attack shattered the ruins behind me. The ground trembled, and something ancient groaned beneath the weight of her magic. I countered with a blade of energy, sharp and precise, aiming for her throat. She barely deflected it, stumbling back. Kai lunged, his blade slashing toward her ribs, but Layla twisted away, faster than I expected. She flicked her wrist, sending a burst of dark tendrils toward him, but Hunter intercepted, his claws tearing through the magic like it was paper. For a moment, I thought we had the upper hand. Then she moved faster than I could track, appearing in front of me in a blur. Before I could react, her hands were on me, one gripping my wrist, the other slamming into my throat, sending me flying backward. I crashed into the ruins, pain exploding through my ribs as the impact knocked the air from my lungs. Layla was on me before I could recover, pinning me down, her grip like iron around my throat. I should have killed you when I had the chance, she hissed, pressing harder. My vision blurred. Stars flickered at the edges. I clawed at her arm, but her grip was unrelenting. My body screamed for air, my lungs burning. Kai and Hunter were locked in battle with the shadows she had summoned, unable to reach me in time. No one was coming. I was going to die. No. A sharp, searing heat ignited in my chest, not magic, not external. It was will, pure and unyielding. I would not die here. With a final, desperate burst of strength, I slammed my knee into Stella's ribs. She faltered, just for a second, but it was enough. I twisted, breaking free of her grip, then drove my elbow into her temple. She stumbled back, dazed. I didn't hesitate. Gripping my blade, I surged forward and plunged it deep into her chest. Her breath hitched. Her hands flew to the wound, grasping at the steel like she could somehow undo what had already been done. She staggered, falling to her knees. The magic around us flickered, the dark energy that had clung to her form dissolving like mist. For the first time she looked human. Her lips parted, a choked, rasping breath escaping. Her fingers, bloodied and trembling, reached toward me, not to attack, but in some last, desperate grasp for something she could never have. Her eyes, still filled with unrelenting bitterness, locked onto mine one final time. Then the light in them faded. I took a breath, shallow, shaky. My throat ached from her grip, my body sore from the fight, but I was standing. I had saved myself. Kai reached me first, his hands finding my shoulders, steadying me. "Bella," he breathed, his voice filled with something raw, relief, admiration, maybe even awe. Hunter stood nearby, still catching his breath, his eyes distant, as if processing his own transformation. But when he looked at me, there was understanding. I wiped the blood from my blade and sheathed it. "It's over," I said, though the words felt strange in my mouth. Kai's hand tightened around mine. Ethan exhaled, the tension in his body finally easing. And as the night settled over the ruins, I allowed myself to believe it. But it wasn't. It was too fast, too shocking before we could react. A blur of motion, a strike too fast for even my eyes to follow. One moment, Layla was standing, hands glowing with dark magic. The next, Hunter's claws raked through her defenses as if they were nothing but air. She let out a choked cry, staggering back, blood blooming across her side. Kai was on her in the next breath, his blade slicing through the air, forcing her to retreat further. She snarled, desperation taking hold as she flung a surge of dark energy at me. I twisted, dodging just in time, the force of her attack scorching the stone ruins behind me. But she was losing control, her movements erratic, her magic sputtering as exhaustion set in. She knew she was going to die. I didn't wait for her to recover. I lunged, closing the distance between us, and drove my blade deep into her chest. Her eyes went wide. For a moment, there was no sound, no breath, just the whisper of wind through the trees, the slow trickle of blood against stone. Then slowly, her form began to shift. The dark magic that had corrupted her peeled away, revealing fragile, broken humanity beneath. She was no longer a monster, just a woman. Her gaze found mine, and for the first time, the hatred in her eyes dulled. "You stole everything," she whispered, voice barely more than a breath. "It should have been me." A final, shuddering exhale left her lips, and her body sagged, lifeless. I held my blade steady for a moment longer before finally pulling it free. Blood dripped onto the cracked stone beneath us, seeping into the earth. Then silence. A heavy stillness settled over the ruins, the energy that had once thrummed in the air fading into nothing. The night pressed in around us, thick and suffocating, as if the very forest was exhaling after witnessing the death of one of its own. Hunter shifted back, his breath coming in slow, deep draws as he stared at his hands. "I didn't know," he murmured. "I didn't know I could do that." I turned to him, meeting his gaze. "You did what needed to be done." Kai stepped to my side, his warmth grounding me as he exhaled. "It's over." I looked down at Layla's lifeless form, her face now peaceful in death. The rage, the bitterness, it had all died with her. But was it really over? I wasn't sure. The ruins forest was still watching. "Bella!" The ruins forest was alive with whispers. Not voices, not creatures, just the wind curling through the gnarled trees, carrying an eerie hum that never faded. The deeper we ventured, the thicker the air became, pressing against my skin like unseen hands. Every step forward felt like wading through something old and rotten, as if the forest itself resisted our presence. Kai moved beside me, silent and sharp-eyed, scanning the shadows ahead. Hunter led the way, his posture rigid, his fingers twitching, as though his body anticipated a fight before one had even begun. The darkness here was unnatural. It clung to the trees, seeped into the soil. The deeper we went, the heavier the feeling became, an oppressive weight that coiled around my ribs. "We're close," I murmured, voice low. I didn't know how I knew, I just did. Kai glanced at me. "You feel it too?" I nodded. It was a sickening pull, something deep beneath the ruins calling to me. Not a voice, just a presence. Hunter inhaled deeply, his steps slowing. "There's something ahead." I followed his gaze to where the forest broke apart, revealing the ruins. They loomed before us, twisted remnants of a forgotten structure, its stone bones jutting against the sky. Vines choked the walls, and strange symbols glowed faintly along the cracked surfaces. Kai exhaled sharply. This is it. Hunter clenched his fists. Then let's end it. With a final glance at each other, we stepped forward into the darkness. The air in the chamber was thick with dampness, the scent of mold and old stone clinging to every breath. Our footsteps echoed against the ancient floor, the flickering torchlight casting long, twisted shadows along the crumbling walls. Ollie lay motionless at the center of the chamber. My heart clenched at the sight of him, his body still, his face pale, dark lashes resting against his cheeks. For a moment, terror gripped me. Was I too late? I rushed forward, dropping to my knees beside him. Ollie? My fingers trembled as I pressed them to his throat, searching for a pulse. Relief flooded through me when I felt it, weak but steady. He's alive, I breathed, my voice shaking slightly. Kai crouched beside me, eyes scanning the chamber warily. We need to get him out of here. Now. Hunter lingered near the entrance, shoulders tense. Something feels wrong. He wasn't wrong. The air was too still, too heavy, as if the ruins themselves were holding their breath. Then a slow, deliberate clapping echoed through the chamber. The sound sent ice down my spine. Harper stepped into the dim light, her crimson cloak trailing behind her like a pool of blood. The soft smirk on her lips was full of cruel amusement, her silver eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "You made it," she said lightly, as if she were welcoming old friends. "I was wondering when you'd show up." Kai's blade was in his hand in an instant, his stance shifting, ready for battle. Hunter snarled beside him, the air around him crackling with restrained power. I rose slowly, keeping Ollie behind me. "Where's the rest of your army, Harper? Or did you come to die alone?" She laughed, the sound low and cold. "Oh, my dear, arrogant girl." She lifted her hand, snapping her fingers once. The chamber trembled. Shadows spilled in from the archways, moving unnaturally, shifting like living things. Then they took shape, figures emerging, their movements stiff, unnatural. Puppets. Dozens of them, filling every corner of the chamber, their faces expressionless, their empty eyes locked onto us. Some bore weapons, others moved with eerie precision, their limbs jerking into position as if waiting for the command to strike. And behind them, Harper's subordinates emerged, hooded figures, their auras pulsing with dark energy. Kai's jaw tightened. "We need to move. Now." Harper smiled. "Oh, you're not going anywhere." Then her lips moved, whispering something beneath her breath. The moment the words left her mouth, it hit me, like a wave of thick, drowning fog crashing over my mind. I gasped, stumbling back as my vision blurred. My thoughts slowed, like they were sinking into a dark abyss. It was like falling into a dream, unable to tell what was real. I heard Kai curse, felt his hand grab my arm, but I barely registered the touch. Ethan let out a strangled snarl beside me, and I knew he had fallen under her spell too. Harper's voice coiled through the fog in my mind. "Shh!" she whispered. "It's easier if you don't fight it." I tried to move, to lift my blade, but my limbs felt foreign, detached from me. The ruins around me blurred, shifting into something unreal. Then I saw them. Ghosts of the past. My father stood before me, his eyes filled with disappointment. "You let me die," he said, his voice heavy with grief. Luther, bloodied and broken, lay at my feet, reaching for me. "Why didn't you save me?" Mabel's laughter rang in my ears, cruel and mocking. "You thought you were better than me, didn't you? But in the end, you're just as lost." I shook my head, trying to force them away. "No," I whispered, "you're not real." But they felt real. Their voices, their faces, the crushing guilt, the unbearable grief. I heard Kai's voice, distant, desperate. "Bella, fight it!" Hunter was beside me, his body tense, his breath ragged, trapped in his own illusions. His claws flexed at his sides, but he made no move, caught in whatever nightmare Evelyn had forced upon him. Harper took a slow step forward, satisfaction written across her face. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she mused. "How easy it is to unravel even the strongest minds. The past is a cage, Arya, and you've always been a prisoner." The words cut deep, but somewhere beneath the fog, beneath the illusions, something fought back. No, I wasn't a prisoner. I had survived too much, fought too hard to fall to this. My hands curled into fists, nails biting into my palms. Pain, real pain. A reminder that I was here in the present, not lost in Harper's illusions. My father wasn't here, Isabella wasn't here, but I was, and I was going to end this. I exhaled sharply, forcing every ounce of my will against the magic trying to drown me. The pressure around my mind wavered, just a crack, but it was enough. I reached deep, pulling on the fire inside me, the fire that had carried me through every battle, every loss. With a cry, I let it explode outward. The force of it shattered the illusions, sending a pulse of energy through the chamber. The fog lifted, the whispers vanished. Hunter gasped beside me, his eyes clearing as he broke free too. His breathing was ragged, fury flashing through his features. Harper's smirk faltered. I bared my teeth at her. "You should have made the spell stronger." She snarled, but before she could react, the chamber shook violently. A war horn echoed through the ruins. And then, chaos. Bella. A war horn echoed through the ruins. And then, chaos. The archways burst open as warriors flooded in, my brothers leading the charge. Lennon's blade was the first to strike, cutting down the nearest puppet. Kieran and Tobias followed, their warriors sweeping through the chamber, carving a path through Evelyn's forces. Kai wasted no time. He lunged at Harper, their blades clashing in a furious blur of steel. Hunter tore into the puppets, his awakened power surging through him, cutting them down with terrifying efficiency. I turned to the nearest enemy, blade in hand, rage burning through me. The battle erupted in full force. The chamber rang with the clash of steel, the roar of warriors, and the shrieks of Evelyn's puppets as they lunged with eerie precision. Lennon's sword gleamed in the torchlight as he cut through the nearest puppet, its body jerking unnaturally before collapsing. Lennon moved with brutal efficiency, his twin daggers slicing through enemies like a shadow weaving through the fray. Xavier and Ralph fought side by side, their coordinated strikes a testament to years of training together. Kai and Harper clashed in a violent dance, their weapons a blur of motion. Harper fought like a woman possessed, her blade weaving deadly arcs through the air, magic crackling at her fingertips. But Kai was relentless, his strikes precise, unyielding. I turned my attention to Hunter, who had fully unleashed his awakened power. He was a force of destruction, his movements almost otherworldly. Shadows curled around him, his claws rending through enemies with terrifying strength. The puppets tried to overwhelm him, but they were no match for his fury. A sharp cry pierced through the chaos. One of our warriors fell, a puppet's jagged blade buried deep in his chest. Enough. I surged forward, my blade cutting through the nearest puppet. "Push forward!" I shouted over the roar of battle. "We end this now!" Xavier caught my eye from across the chamber and gave a sharp nod. "Lennon, Ralph, on me!" he barked, leading them deeper into the ruins, where Harper's subordinates were attempting to regroup. Kai managed to drive Harper back toward the center of the chamber. Her chest heaved with exertion, strands of dark hair clinging to her damp face. But she wasn't done, not yet. Her lips curled into a snarl, and she raised both hands, power crackling at her fingertips. "You think you've won?" she hissed. The air shifted. A pulse of dark energy erupted from her palms, slamming into the ground. The stone trembled beneath our feet as the ruins responded. Ancient glyphs along the walls flared to life, and from the shadows more puppets emerged, their bodies grotesque, twisted mockeries of life. "Damn it! Don't let her summon more," I shouted, charging toward her. Kai moved in tandem with me, his blade flashing as he parried Harper's strikes. She was fast, almost too fast, but she was tiring. Hunter leaped into the fray, his claws raking across Harper's arm. She screamed, staggering back, her magic faltering for just a moment. I seized the opening. With a surge of strength, I drove my blade forward, straight into her side. Hunter gasped, eyes widening in shock as steel bit into flesh. Blood spilled from her lips as she stumbled. "No," she whispered, as if refusing to believe this was how it ended. I twisted the blade, my voice a deadly whisper. "This is for everything you've taken from us." With a final, shuddering breath, Evelyn crumpled to the ground. The moment she fell, the puppets convulsed, their bodies seizing before collapsing into lifeless heaps. The ruins seemed to exhale, the dark energy that had pulsed through them fading into silence. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Lennon stepped forward, his sword lowering slightly as he looked at Harper's still form. "It's over." A breath I hadn't realized I was holding escaped me. We had won. The battle was over. Now, all that was left was to bring Ollie home. Silence stretched through the chamber, the heavy weight of battle still pressing down on us. The smell of blood and burning magic lingered in the air, but Harper was dead. The puppets were gone. We had won. But as I looked around at the cursed ruins, This place where so much darkness had festered, I knew victory wasn't enough. We had to erase it. All of it. I turned to Kai, my voice steady despite the exhaustion gripping my limbs. We're not leaving this place standing. His silver eyes flickered with understanding. You have a plan. I nodded, already stepping toward the nearest set of glyphs etched into the stone walls. Harper infused this entire structure with magic. She wove her power into it, which means if we unravel the right points. I trailed my fingers over the symbols, feeling the residual energy crackling beneath my skin. We can bring it all down. Lennon sheathed his sword, stepping beside me. What do you need? I exhaled, focusing. We need to overload the core of the ruins. I can channel an energy surge in the foundations, but it has to be precise. I glanced at Hunter. Think you can lend me some of that raw power? Hunter smirked, still catching his breath from the fight. Thought you'd never ask. Lennon, Xavier, and Ralph gathered near the exit, making sure everyone was clear. We'll give you the time you need, Xavier said. I knelt beside Ollie, brushing his hair back gently. We'll be out soon, I whispered. Kai and Hunter flanked me as I stood. Let's do this. Together, we moved through the ruins, marking the key points where the structure was weakest. The air around us crackled as Hunter channeled his awakened power into my hands, raw energy surging through me. It was like holding a storm, wild, untamed, and deadly. I pressed my palm to the largest glyph. The stone trembled beneath the force of our combined power, fractures forming like veins of lightning. The ruins groaned in protest, resisting, but I wasn't letting go. I clenched my jaw and pushed harder. The magic expanded, threading through the walls, searching for the heart of the ruins. And when I found it, a dark, pulsing core buried deep beneath the stone, I didn't hesitate. I unleashed everything. A blinding flash of light erupted as the energy ruptured through the ruins. The ground lurched violently, cracks splitting across the floor, swallowing debris into its depths. Move, Kai shouted. We ran. The ruins collapsed behind us, stone and fire chasing at our heels. The explosion rocked the ground, sending a shockwave through the forest. Flames burst through the cracks, consuming the cursed once and for all. I stumbled as we reached the clearing, the force of the detonation nearly knocking me off my feet. Lennon caught me, steadying me as we turned to watch the ruins crumble into dust. It was over. Truly over. The place that had stolen so much from us, my father, Mabel, our own blood, was nothing more than rubble and fire. Kai stepped beside me, his hand finding mine. You did it. I exhaled, the weight of it all crashing down. No, I said, squeezing his hand. We did. And as the flames roared in the distance, I let myself believe, for the first time in a long time, that we were finally free. Bella. The ruins still smelled of blood and magic. The battle was over, but its echoes remained in the shattered stones, in the bruises on our skin, in the exhaustion that pressed into our bones. I stood at the heart of it all, surrounded by warriors who had once been divided, now united, alive. And yet, my gaze was fixed on only one thing, Ollie. Kai knelt beside him, his face tight with worry as he brushed the damp curls from the boy's forehead. Ollie's chest rose and fell in uneven breaths, his small fingers twitching slightly against the cold stone beneath him. Come back to us, baby, I whispered, sinking to my knees. My hands hovered over him, unsure if I was strong enough to touch him without breaking. Kai's jaw clenched. He's breathing. His voice was steady, but I could hear the fear beneath it. The same fear that had been clawing at my ribs since we found Ollie in that cursed chamber beneath the ruins. I reached out, my fingers grazing Ollie's hand. His skin was too cold, too still. Then he stirred, a sharp inhale. His small frame jerked slightly, as if startled awake from a nightmare. His eyelashes fluttered, then lifted, revealing those bright, storm-gray eyes that I had fallen in love with the moment I met him. Mom? His voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. I choked on a sob. I'm here. His tiny fingers wrapped around mine, holding on as if I were the only thing keeping him tethered to the world. Kai exhaled sharply, his forehead resting against Ollie's. You scared the hell out of us, kid. A sleepy, drowsy smile ghosted over Ollie's lips. Sorry, Dad. I let out a breath that was half a laugh, half a sob. You better be. Ollie's gaze flickered past us to the warriors gathered around, to the ruins still humming with old magic. His brows furrowed, his small hands gripping mine tighter. Then his voice changed. It was still his voice, but something older wove into it, something ancient. The fire in her blood will burn away the shadows. The breath left my lungs. Ollie's eyes were distant, unfocused, as if he were seeing something beyond the world we stood in. She will stand when all others fall. She will mend what is broken. She will unite the lost. A shiver crawled down my spine. Kai's grip on my arm tightened. Ollie? It was always meant to be her. The warriors fell silent. Even the wind held its breath. Ollie blinked, his gaze clearing as if waking from a deep sleep. He looked at me, confusion flickering across his face. Mom? I exhaled slowly. I'm here, baby. He frowned slightly, like something heavy had settled in his chest. Did I say something weird? Kai and I exchanged glances. I swallowed hard. Yeah, baby, you did. He hesitated, then tucked himself closer to me, pressing his face against my chest. His voice was small, barely audible. It felt like someone was speaking through me, he whispered. I ran my fingers through his curls, pressing a kiss to the top of his head. It's okay, you're safe. But the prophecy lingered in the air, etched into the silence. And deep inside me, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. The warriors dispersed, murmuring among themselves, their gazes shifting between me and Ollie. Kai didn't move. He stayed close, his presence solid and warm, his arms still wrapped around me and Ollie, as if shielding us from the weight of what had just happened. He exhaled, his forehead pressing against my temple. So, he murmured, our son just recited a prophecy in front of an entire pack of werewolves. I let out a breathless laugh, shaking my head. Yep, Kai sighed, and apparently you're destined to unite them all and save the world. Seems like it. A pause. Then his lips brushed my ear, his voice soft and teasing, but threaded with something deeper. You always did like making things difficult. I turned to him, smiling despite everything, resting my forehead against his. You love me for it. His breath hitched. I really do. Ollie, still tucked between us, groaned. Ugh, can you guys stop being all lovey-dovey? I almost died, you know. Kai chuckled, pressing a kiss to Ollie's forehead. Trust me, kid, we know. I smoothed my hands over Ollie's curls, my chest tight with so much love and relief that it hurt. Let's go home. Kai nodded, standing and lifting Ollie effortlessly into his arms. Home. And for the first time in a long, long time, it finally felt real. The war had ended, but peace was not automatic. It had to be built, brick by brick, law by law, trust by trust. Kai and I stood at the heart of the werewolf stronghold, overseeing the gathering of alphas, betas, and warriors from packs that had once fought against one another. The scars of war still lingered, on the land, on their faces, in their weary eyes, but there was something else now. A chance. A future. Kane exhaled beside me, arms crossed as he surveyed the gathered leaders. They looked ready to tear each other apart. I smirked. That's what they said about us once. His lips quirked, but his gaze stayed sharp. You think we can pull this off? I reached for his hand, lacing my fingers through his. I think we have to. Kai squeezed back, a silent vow, together. The grand hall was filled with murmurs and tension. The alphas sat in a half-circle, waiting for the new laws to be proposed, each of them carrying years, sometimes generations, of grudges. I stepped forward. We can't undo the past, but we can decide what comes next. An older alpha scoffed. And you think new laws will erase the blood spilled? No, I admitted, but they can stop more from being shed. Kai stood beside me, his voice calm but firm. We need unity, not division. The war left us vulnerable. If we fight among ourselves, we'll destroy everything before we even have a chance to rebuild. The room fell silent. Then a voice rang out. What laws do you propose? I took a breath. First, no pack shall attack another without just cause. Any disputes must be settled by council, not war. Some grumbled, but I pressed on. Second, rogue wolves who seek refuge must be judged fairly, not executed on sight. We don't need more blood. We need more strength. A younger alpha, eyes wary but hopeful, spoke up. And leadership, who rules? Kai's gaze flickered to me before addressing them. We don't need a single ruler. We need a council, a balance of power, representatives from every pack. The idea rippled through the room, some shocked, some relieved, some still uncertain. I lifted my chin. This isn't just about survival. It's about building a future where our children don't grow up fearing the next war. Silence. Then, one by one, the alphas nodded. The first Council of Peace was born. Kai and I walked through the wreckage of a once thriving village, burned homes, shattered streets, lost memories buried under ash and stone. "We'll rebuild," I murmured. "Better than before." He studied me, then nodded. "We start with homes, shelter first, then defenses." I looked up at him, and after that, his lips curled slightly. "Then we give them a reason to stay." It started small, scouts retrieving supplies, builders laying the first stones, warriors standing guard. The broken village became a town, a home. Ollie ran through the streets, laughing as he played with pups his age, and for the first time, I felt the weight of war lifting. Kai and I stood on the highest hill, overlooking the land we were shaping into something greater. "Did you ever think this would be our life?" I asked. Kai smirked. "I thought we'd kill each other before we made it this far." I laughed. "Me too." His smirk faded, replaced by something softer. "You did this, Bells." I shook my head. "We did." He turned to me fully, his gaze dark and serious. "I meant what I said back there. This isn't just about rebuilding walls or writing new laws. It's about making sure this never happens again." I took his hands. "Then let's make that promise, together." And so, beneath the stars, we swore to build a future worth fighting for. The halls were silent, but the weight of grief pressed against the walls like an invisible storm. We stood together, Xavier, Lennon, Hunter, Ryan, Luna Quinn, and I, before the memorial of a man who had been more than a king. He had been our father, our protector, our foundation, and now he was gone. Ryan was the first to step forward. His voice was steady, but his hands trembled. He wasn't just our father. He was our guide, our anchor, and even when we doubted ourselves, he never did. He swallowed hard. He saw the best in us, even when we couldn't see it in ourselves. Xavier followed, his usual sharp tone softer now. He wasn't perfect, but he never stopped trying, and that's what made him great. Lennon wiped his eyes. He wanted us to be better than him, to build something he couldn't. I know, that's what we have to do. Hunter placed a hand on the stone. He never got to see the peace he fought for, but we'll make sure it wasn't in vain. Kai stood beside me, offering silent strength. I needed it, because now it was my turn. I stepped forward, my throat tight. I didn't have long with him. I didn't get the years you all had, but I loved him, and he loved me, enough to never stop looking for me, enough to believe in me when I didn't believe in myself. Tears blurred my vision, and I will spend every day making sure his legacy isn't just a memory, it's a reality. The silence that followed was heavy with sorrow, but also with love. Luna Quinn stepped forward, her gaze lost in the flickering candlelight. "I failed her," she whispered. We turned to her, confused. She lifted her chin, eyes glistening. "Layla." The name hung in the air, a ghost of what could have been. I thought I had lost my daughter, and when Layla was given to me, I let myself believe she could fill that void. She took a shaky breath. But I failed her, and I failed Bella even more. Kai took my hand. "I should have believed you, Bella," Luna Quinn continued, her voice breaking. "If I had, maybe none of this would have happened." Guilt weighed on her shoulders, but I refused to let it linger. I stepped forward, taking her hands in mine. "You didn't fail me," I said softly. "You loved me. That's all that mattered." Tears slipped down her face. "Can you forgive me?" I smiled through my own tears. "There's nothing to forgive." She let out a shaky, broken breath, and then she pulled me into a hug. A moment later, the rest of the family joined. Xavier, Lennon, Hunter, Ryan. Kai wrapped his arms around me from behind, pressing a kiss to my hair. And then Ollie ran into the embrace, burying himself between us. For the first time since losing him, we weren't just mourning our father. We were honoring him together. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I knew we were going to be okay. Bella. The night before my wedding, my brothers kidnapped me. Not literally, though with them anything was possible, but they barged into my room, dragged me out of my wedding preparations, and declared that it was a sibling bonding emergency. I barely had time to argue before Xavier threw me over his shoulder like a sack of flour. Ryan tossed a blanket over my head for extra security, and Hunter and Lennon led the charge down the hall, laughing like a bunch of lunatics. By the time they finally set me down, I was dizzy, breathless, and slightly concerned for my safety. "What the hell was that?" I gasped, pushing my hair out of my face as I looked around. They had brought me to one of the old gathering halls, now transformed into something unrecognizably cozy. The fire crackled in the grand hearth, a feast of steak, bread, and wine set out on a long wooden table. Lennon grinned, throwing an arm around my shoulder. "Welcome to the official quadruplet and Bella pre-wedding party." Ryan held up a goblet like he was making a royal toast. "We figured you'd need a break before tomorrow, and who better to remind you of your chaotic origins than us?" Hunter leaned against the table, smirking. "Plus, Kai is busy with his own thing. We figured you could use one last night of freedom." I let out a breathless laugh, my heart swelling at the sight of them. My brothers, my family. I sank into a chair, shaking my head. "You guys are idiots." Xavier smirked, pouring me a drink. "Yeah, but we're your idiots." We were halfway through dinner when Lennon leaned forward, a mischievous glint in his eye. "All right, let's talk honeymoon plans." I groaned. "Do we have to?" Ryan wiggled his eyebrows. "Oh, we definitely have to. Where are you and Kai running off to after the wedding?" Hunter tapped his chin in fake thought. "I vote for somewhere far, preferably another realm, where we don't have to hear you two being disgustingly in love." Xavier snorted. "Oh, please, they could be on the moon and we'd still hear them." I choked on my fruit wine. "Excuse me?" Lennon grinned. "We just want to make sure you're getting the full honeymoon experience." Ryan nodded solemnly. "Which means no thinking about work, no battle strategies, no sneaking off in the middle of the night to check border patrols." I groaned, sinking into my chair. "I hate you all." Hunter smirked. "No, you love us." Lennon clapped his hands. "All right, honeymoon destinations. I'm thinking tropical island. Sand, sun, and the two of you stuck together with no weapons or war to worry about." Ryan made a face. "Nah, too boring. I say mountains. Somewhere secluded where they can pretend they're the only two people in the world." Hunter leaned forward. "Or a haunted castle. Add some spice." Xavier rolled his eyes. "Kai would kill us for even suggesting that." I crossed my arms. "I haven't even agreed to any of this yet." Lennon winked. "Oh, you will." I groaned, but I couldn't hide my smile. Somehow, the conversation shifted from honeymoons to something way worse. "All right," Ryan said, stretching his arms behind his head. "How long until we get a niece or nephew?" I choked. "Ryan!" Hunter smirked. "What? It's a valid question." Lennon nudged me. "Come on, you're not going to make us wait years, are you?" I gaped at them, horrified. "Why are we even talking about this?" Xavier shrugged. "Look, we're just saying, Nathaniel already looks at you like you hung the moon. It's only a matter of time before he starts wanting little wolves running around." Ryan grinned. "And when that happens, we need to be prepared." Hunter cracked his knuckles. "Yep, we'll be the best uncles ever." Lennon nodded. "Obviously, we need to start training now. Practicing lullabies, sword fighting lessons, how to teach a kid to properly sneak out of a guarded fortress." I dropped my head onto the table. I am regretting every life decision that led me to this moment. Xavier ruffled my hair. "Too late, sister. You're stuck with us." After dinner, we sprawled out on the floor in front of the fire, debating what songs should be played at the wedding reception. Ryan threw a crumpled list at me. "We've narrowed it down, but we need final approval." I unfolded it, scanning the scribbled song titles. "Why is Eye of the Tiger on here?" Hunter grinned. "For when Nathaniel takes your garter off." "Epic." Lennon smirked. "Or imagine it playing during your first dance." I threw a pillow at him. "Absolutely not." Xavier rolled onto his back, laughing. Okay, what about something romantic?" Ryan waggled his brows. "Or something dramatic, like an orchestra playing while Kai gazes at you like he'd burn the world for you." Hunter sighed dreamily. "That does sound very on brand for him." Lennon nudged me. "What do you want, sis?" I thought for a moment, then smiled. "Iris." The room fell silent. Then Ryan grinned. "That's perfect." Hunter nodded. "All right, but we get to pick the party songs after." Lennon smirked. "Hope you're ready for some chaos." I sighed. "Why do I feel like I'm going to regret this?" Xavier slung an arm around my shoulders. "Because you have 4 brothers with 0 self-control." Ryan grinned. "And we love you." I rolled my eyes. Yeah, I love you idiots too." And for the first time in a long time, I let myself just be their sister. Laughing, teasing, loved. Tomorrow I would be a wife, a leader, a queen. But tonight I was just Bella. The day dawned golden, sunlight spilling over the rolling hills, filtering through the towering trees of the werewolf stronghold. The air was thick with the scent of wildflowers and fresh earth, the sky painted in hues of blue so rich it felt like a blessing from the gods themselves. This was the beginning of forever. I stood before a gilded mirror in the bridal chamber, hands clasped together to still the nervous tremor. The delicate lace of my gown skimmed my arms, the beating catching the light like fallen stars. It was exquisite, flowing, ethereal, nothing like the warrior's armor I was used to wearing, a dress worthy of a queen. "You look like a dream," Cora murmured behind me, and when I turned, my breath caught. She looked beautiful, healthier than I had ever seen her, her auburn hair falling in soft waves, her emerald gown hugging her frame like it was made for her. The shadows that had once haunted her eyes, remnants of the horrors Alpha Gray had inflicted, were gone. She was free. I swallowed hard, my voice thick. "You're glowing." Cora smiled, stepping forward to take my hands. "Happiness looks good on us both." I let out a breathless laugh, gripping her fingers. "I'm nervous." She squeezed my hands. "That's a good thing." I bit my lip, glancing at my reflection. This is the second time we're doing this. What if—" Cora silenced me with a soft touch to my cheek. "What if it's better?" I exhaled. "Bella, love isn't perfect. It's a choice. One you make over and over again, and if you're lucky, you get to keep choosing it for the rest of your life." Her smile was soft, full of all the warmth and devotion she had ever given me. "Kai has already chosen you, and you've chosen him." I let the words settle into my bones. I had fought battles, I had bled, I had lost and won, but this was forever. A soft knock interrupted the moment. "It's time," came Hunter's voice from the other side of the door. Cora took my arm, her eyes shining. "Are you ready?" I took a slow breath, my heart steady. Yes. The ceremony was held in the heart of the forest, where ancient trees stood as silent witnesses to the vows we would make. Lanterns hung from the branches, casting golden light over the gathered werewolves, their faces filled with joy and reverence. And then, the music began, and I'd give up forever to touch you. The first notes of Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls rippled through the clearing, filling the air with aching beauty. "'Cause I know that you feel me somehow." Cora's grip on my arm was steady as we stepped onto the aisle, the world blurring around me. But I saw him, Kai, waiting at the altar, his broad shoulders straight, his golden eyes locked onto mine, and in them I saw everything. Love, devotion, a promise that had never wavered, not through war, not through pain, not through death itself. And all I can taste is this moment. Tears burned my eyes as I walked toward him, past rows of warriors and loved ones. Luna Quinn stood beside my brothers, her expression one of quiet approval. Ryan and Hunter stood beside Kai, dressed in dark ceremonial attire, their usual smirks replaced with something softer. Ollie, standing in front of them, grinning like he already knew the future. And I don't want the world to see me, 'cause I don't think that they'd understand. Kai's breath caught as I stepped onto the altar, his hand reaching for mine before I had even stopped walking. "When everything's made to be broken, I just want you to know who I am." And as I looked into his eyes, I knew he did. He knew me. Every part, every scar, every piece I had ever been. And he loved me anyway. Luna Quinn stepped forward to officiate, her gaze warm as she looked between us. "We gather today not just to witness a union, but to honor one. Bella and Kai have already vowed themselves to one another in spirit, in battle, in life. But today they vow it once more, before their family, their people, and the gods." Kaib turned to me, eyes filled with something so pure, so unshakable that I almost couldn't breathe. His voice was low, raw, and filled with love. "I have loved you in every life we've lived," he murmured, "and I will love you in every life that comes after this one." A tear slipped down my cheek. "I vow to stand beside you, to fight for you, to build a future where you never have to bear your burdens alone." His hand tightened around mine. "Bella, I am yours, in this life, in the next, in every breath I have left." I let out a shaky laugh. "That's not fair, you're making me cry." The crowd chuckled softly, but I swallowed, composing myself. "Kai," I whispered, looking up at him, "you were the storm I never saw coming, the battle I never meant to fight, and the only war I ever wanted to lose." His lips parted slightly, breath hitching. "I vow to stand beside you, not as your shadow, not as your shield, but as your equal. I vow to love you, to challenge you, to remind you that you don't have to bear everything alone. I squeezed his hand, my voice breaking, and I vow to choose you again and again and again. His fingers brushed away the tear on my cheek. Luna Quinn smiled. Then with the blessing of all those present, and by the will of the moon, I declare you bound for eternity. Kai didn't wait. He pulled me to him, crashing his lips to mine, the world erupting into cheers, and I melted into him, into forever. The ceremony blurred into the reception, laughter, music, dancing beneath the stars. Kai and I never left each other's side, his hands always on me, guiding me across the dance floor, brushing my cheek, skimming over my waist and teasing silent promises. But before he could pull me away, I stopped him. His brows lifted in amusement. "What is it, my love?" I took his hands, pressing them against my stomach. Kai stilled. His eyes darted to mine, and in them I saw it, hope, realization, disbelief. I smiled through my tears. "Kai, I'm pregnant." For a moment he didn't breathe. Then joy washed over him, raw and overwhelming. "Bella," he choked, his hands trembling against me. Ollie, standing nearby, let out a dramatic sigh, crossing his arms. "Finally, I've known forever, but I had to let Mom tell you." Kai let out a strangled laugh, scooping Ollie up with one arm while wrapping the other around me. His lips found mine again, gentler this time, filled with something deeper than words could hold. And as we stood there, husband, wife, and the family we had built together, I knew our future was going to be beautiful. The end.